I'm Hidetoshi Shibata, CEO. I would like to thank you for joining us in spite of your very busy schedule. 2019, in July of that year, I've assumed this position, and thereafter, from 2020, I've conducted a progress update on the midterm plan every half year. There have been updates on both positive as well as negative news, and there have been many, and there has been a necessity to disclose the information at every half-year intervals. But fortunately, we have not been overcome by as numerous news as we have experienced before, and therefore we have decided to offer progress update in a rather shortened period. So as I have mentioned, there is not a lot to impart to you. I would like to briefly discuss the update on progress made, and as far as time allows, I would like to reflect on past developments so that we are able to share the context of discussion that will allow you to understand the backdrop by which we are taking part in various activities and what we are geared to achieve in the future. I do hope that this will present such an opportunity. And thank you for joining. But then I would like to use the presentation material as I move along. First of all, in the way of reflections, 2013, as we have seen to the left, there's a consortium led by INCJ of 150 billion. In the first several years, there have been restructuring activities that have unfolded. 2016, in Kumamoto, the great earthquake occurred. Our sales have suffered. And at that juncture, there have been M&A opportunities overseas that has allowed us to enhance our product portfolio. And also by changing the mix of talent, we've embarked on an effort to change the corporate culture that has begun 2016 and 2017. We have acquired Intersil. And from that point onwards, we have embarked on the first step on our journey to globalization. 2017, 2018, it has been a period of trial and error. In 2019, IDT has been acquired, and thereafter, we have been able to build on our strategy as well as acquire the tools for growth. I would not say that we are complete. However, we believe that we have been able to acquire the minimum that we need in the way of toolkits. In 2019 onwards, in 2021, we have acquired Dialog. And today we are 2022. We are entering into the second half of the year. In 2019 onwards, as I have mentioned, COVID-19 has gripped the world. We have also acquired Dialog. And there have been the fire at our Naka plant. For good or bad, there have been an eventful period that we have experienced. But at the same time, in this sequence of events, I would say that I've come to strongly believe that we need to produce on outcomes in a very short period of time, and that's how I've handled management. The company overall have placed an emphasis on speed so that we are able to deliver our results in a very limited period of time, and we have applied various measures, and as a result, as we look at the bar graph, and to the right, we have various numbers in the way of revenue as well as operating margin, and also market cap, which have indicated the outcome. Of course, in interim, Of course, there have been a tailwind in the semiconductor market, so I would not take credit for all these achievements. But however, I would say that the management efforts have paid off and allowed us to register these numbers on the screen. And from this point onwards, we believe that we have been able to produce results in a short period, short term, but we also need to take a long-term perspective, apply the accelerator on investment so that we are able to conduct investment that fits the tone of the times. So we believe that we are at a crossroad. So when we talk about long-term perspective, how do we define this? I would like to take a look. The purpose of our company. On various occasions, we have referred to our purpose, and that is to say, for ourselves, for our clients, and for the ultimate users of our products as well as services. From the broadest sense, we need to deliver results that will make our lives easier, and that is what we are determined to do as a company. That is, of course, conceptual. You might say that, of course, that makes sense. In our strategic agenda, how does it tie in? And how are we progressing? I would like to dwell on this. At every opportunity, I have attempted to refer to this question, and I would like to talk on this. A strategic agenda is indicated here. But on the next page and onwards, I would like to talk in more depth. And up above, we have the 3 items. These are pillars of our strategy, very offensive in nature. And this will serve as an axis by which we are determined to move ahead with our business. More than ever before, we are more strongly attentive to the need to grow. And for this to happen, we need to look at each and every device. That is what we have done in the past, but we need to shift gears so that we are now looking at solutions. And what's important is to enhance user experience. We cannot just depend on the so-called sophisticated users, but we need to look at a broad range of users, and we need to deliver to the end user with speed. And down below, we have these 4 items, and these are critical as the very foundation so that we can deliver on the items at the top. One of which is diversification. And I would like to dwell on this a bit later. And a fab-light approach is also important as a foundation. And we have been working on our culture. Efforts to upgrade our culture and ESG. Various efforts have been made thus far.
So, in recapping our emphasis on growth, we've been doing a lot of things, but especially at the beginning of this year, I think what we've been doing can be exemplified at what you find here. In other words, we want to look at some of the clients that we'd be able to have strong growth as well as long tail business. So maybe in the beginning, the business may start small, but there's a great potential for growth. And so that is what we wanted to make sure that we'd be able to complement in ourselves. We have tried to pursue organizational change for that. And because of that, or not just because of that, but what we have been doing is what you exactly find on the bottom part of this slide. In other words, we wanted to focus to the market segment that we'd be able to expect fast growth, and we've been able to pursue design in those areas. And so we have actually been able to execute growth there. Now, on the right side, the mass market, this is an area where within the data management within our site, we're not really able to keep track of specifically of what the design in, and so the numbers here may seem small, but if we are able to more accurately track the record of this design in, we should be able to really show you a much higher number to show you what speed we are accelerating. But then even on the CAGR, we know that in total we are able to execute growth by more than 20%, and this is because we have emphasized on growth. As we try to seek what we'd be able to do into the future, areas where you would be interested and where we would be interested in would be the progress in the design in. The gray bar on the left shows the actuals for last year. And versus that, there is the middle dark blue bar, which indicates targets for this year. And versus the actuals of last year, we're trying to set quite an aggressive target for both automotive and for industrial infrastructure and IoT. And that's what I wanted to remind everyone. So it is quite an aggressive target that we've set for ourselves. How did we do for this first half? I think we have been able to make a pretty good progress so far. So automotive, versus the initial target, we have been able to exceed 60% already. And even for industrial infrastructure and IoT, we have come a little more than half. So I would say so far, so good. Now, we have a little more than a quarter to go till the end of this year. And of course, in the end, we will have to close all the numbers to see how much we've been able to do. But I do believe so far we're making a good progress to the aggressive targets that we've set for ourselves. Moving on, here I'd like to talk about the second part of our offensive of 3 pillars. This is about the focus to the solution. And of course, this is something that I have been reporting to you. It's about the progress on winning combo. Left-hand side, we look at the cumulative counts of the solution, the winning combo solutions. And also on the right-hand side, we also look at the value of the design in that we've been able to create so far. Again, from the left-hand side, from the 2 previous sessions, I do believe I have been talking about it's not just about the number of the winning combo, it's about the quality of the winning combos we've been able to focus. I think this is something that I have been saying. In other words, the darker blue part, we believe are the more higher quality, full system type of solution that we be able to offer. And so as we look into the end of this year, we believe that there will be like more than 434 winning combos, and so about 40%, a little over 170, would be the full system solution. In other words, the higher quality solutions. And as we look towards 2023, we're hoping that it's this dark blue part that will be growing. So the overall winning combo solutions, it's not just about increasing the total figures, but it's really about increasing this dark blue full system part. So that's what we're trying to do. And of course, here, so far so good, and we have been doing our daily work diligently. And on the right-hand side, it also tells you that we're making very good progress in a design in. And so for the total design in for this year, we believe that approximately 30% comes from winning combo type of solution. And again, we did set a pretty aggressive target for ourselves. But because of these winning combos, we do believe that each of this design in is giving us some additional value coming from each of the additional device. And that enables us to achieve, make a good progress, even though we had set ourselves quite an aggressive target. Another thing about solutions. So I said it's the full system solutions, but what is this full system solutions? And I do believe I did discuss this with you in the previous sessions, but I would also like to give you some examples. On the left-hand side, the blue shaded areas indicates the automotive solutions, and so the right hand, the more purplish colors would be the IoT. It does seem a bit different in nature. So the automotive side solutions. So of course, you have this good board. That's one message that I wanted to tell you. But in addition to that, on the right-hand side to the boards, you also see this computers or measurement tools. So by expanding into these tools, we allow the customers to be able to see the entire function when they include these measurements or these tools. In other words, we'd be able to offer a model that would very much fit to some of the design that some of the, for example, third party would be suggesting. So it's not just about the board that we'd be able to offer. It's really about how this boards could be adapted, included in the entire solution. It's something that we're trying to show. Also, on the right-hand side, here again, this is from the IoT side. So again, there's the board level, hardware level solutions. And here, we're saying that if you'd be able to fit this board or this item, you'd be able to start using this. And that's the type of the solution that we're trying to pursue. I want a good example, for example, on the top or perhaps on the bottom, you see this white squared place. So that indicates our device in the board. And so there are many, as you can see. And for example, on the top right example, there's this object detection. So this is a board for object detection. And so the client be able to use this and with some of the coding. And on the right-hand side is the demo equipment. It might not be exactly for you to tell what this is, but on this wheel, you have this little cars on, and the camera is looking at this from the top. And this is something that we know it is going to be used in Europe. And so, for example, in a plant, there'll be the parking space. And it could be AGVs or automobiles. If there's anything that is moving around, it could be detected. And you'd be able to detect like how many vehicles are where. For example, you can have easier control of the fleet or control the facility. And we know it is going to be used. In other words, this solution, by tweaking the software side, it could be immediately used for a specific application. And what you find on the bottom right, this is something that there's more potential for. This is something that could be used in the more potential, high potential growth countries. So this is a solar irrigation pump, and if you'd be able to connect this, there'd be the board. If they be able to implement into the equipment, then the solar panel, as long as the solar panel will be able to capture the sunlight, then this system itself, the solar irrigation pump, would start working. And so it's about just implementing the board. And if required, please arrange the software a little, and you'll be able to use this. So what we're trying to do in this industrial IoT side is a bit different in nature from the solutions that we're trying to offer in the automotive side, but we wanted to show what kind of full system solutions we'd be offering. So here we also talk about the user experience, and this is something that you may have heard already, but there are some areas that I would like to emphasize. And so again, on the bottom left, we have this automotive side virtual design environment that we're talking about here.
It just so happens that we released a press release just yesterday. On the upper left-hand corner, for each of these individual devices in a virtual environment, we have the models and simulation environment that we were able to offer. However, as indicated in the press release just yesterday, and this we expanded to a multi-device level, and the micro processors will be also fitted onto the system, onto the personal computer, which will be simulating the environment by which the clients will be using the system. And therefore, this is just an example how we have been able to enhance the user environment. The theme is the same as before. However, what I wanted to express here is evolved. And this is an example of how we have worked to enhance the user experience. And due to time constraints, I would like to speed ahead. And now down below, as indicated, the foundation of the strategic agenda, we have firstly diversification. We start from the upper left-hand corner. The diversification of, first of all, the product side, and upper right-hand corner, the R&D locations in terms of geographic diversification will happen. And bottom left-hand side, as we offer our solutions and products, here we're looking at market segments. And bottom right-hand corner, we are looking at the talent composition. And this is also where diversification will occur. 2019, as of that point, to some extent, diversification has been achieved to some extent. But even then, as we see in the dark blue shaded area, you'll find many are just about half or exceeding half of the entire pie. But as we fast forward to where we are today, currently, be it product and micro controllers are now less than 40% of the total. And geographic composition, Japan, is now less than half. And bottom left-hand corner, we have a better balanced segment exposure. And when we look at the talent composition, Japan accounts for a large proportion, or rather, shall I say, formerly Renaissance employees account for a large proportion. However, due to M&A and also new recruits, we are finding a greater diversification in terms of talent composition. As we move forward, of course, we will not continue along this track, but we will be able to depart from concentration to a specific segment, and we are hoping to see a better balanced pie chart in each of these areas. And now the second part of the foundation piece, FabLight. In 2018, you will look at the dark shaded area. This indicates our factory locations. 2022, in the first half of the year, we find that Foundry, OSAT, and also outsourced to third-party manufacturers now exceed 50% of the total. And that is very clear from this pie chart. And as we move forward, we will continue investment in our owned plant operations, and we will look at Foundry and also OSAT. The proportion attributed to cooperation with these stakeholders will also increase. But at the same time, as we have done in the past, and I'm just looking at the front end, the Foundry partners and our own plants, in the way of roles to be performed, will need to be clarified. And that is what we are working on, and this is the direction ahead. And that is described in the right-hand corner. When we look at, of course, the advanced process that we attributed to the Foundry, and the mid portion, the mature process, in terms of process node, 40 nanos or larger, will be attributed to a hybrid model that is composed of foundries and our own plants. And 300 millimeters, Anaka, and also Kawashi Saijo, the analog products will increase, and also the microcontroller products will also increase. And that is how we hope to be able to work on the characterization and positioning of the plants. And as for power discretes, in the Kofu K6 plant, we talked about resuming, we issued a press release on resumption of activities. and also Naka 200 millimeters and 6 inches, and Takasaki step by step for power discrete. For these 3 plants, work will be aggregated. And as for the mature process, which are handling power discrete to some extent, these will be shifted away to concentrate analog mix and also micro controllers. And that is what we're currently working on right now. And as for our own plants, the client's interest is very high on activities on ensuring resilience. And I would like to discuss this using a slide. And to the very left, we have anti-earthquake measures. And adjacent to that, measures to cope with power backdrops due to lightning, as well as floods and also volcanic eruptions, have been indicated side by side. And some have been completed up above and on track, and due for completion is at the center. And at bottom, it is over the horizon, will take some more time to complete. So this is how these efforts have been categorized. And at a look, you will be able to find for anti-earthquake measures, those that are attributed to structural reinforcement, measures have already been completed. And as a challenge for equipment, for example, SiC and also quartz, quake resistance measures have been taken and is on track as indicated to the left. As for power backup, end of this calendar year to early next year, we will reinforce our backup capabilities, and also in Naka plant for power line protection will also proceed to ensure added resilience against blackouts. Of course, to some extent, we'll have to naturally depend on utilities, and therefore will have to work on encouraging utilities to work on this. It may take some time, but we will work on each and every one of these measures. And as for floods and also volcanic eruption, as a risk thus far, efforts have been completed, but as of late, we have come to believe that we also need to cope with dramatic scenarios. We need to work on this with local municipalities to take measures that are feasible. And overall, as we see down below, the die banks, in terms of the economics, and also in terms of the actual benefits, this will offer, of course, an important asset. And when you look at the market, we find that things are settling down, and therefore we need to optimize the capabilities of the plant operations and at the same time work on the die banks. And when we are able to complete work that is in progress for any disaster that is expected, we believe that we will be able to establish a structure that is highly resilient. And now moving on to foundations or culture. And this is what we refer to as TAGI, transparent. And beginning with transparent, there are 5 components that are expressed in the jargon TAGI. And cultural survey has been conducted, and we have discussed this in the past. And I'd like to provide a very compact explanation. And of course, we need to be very transparent in order to disclose information, and we have been working on this. And this also needs to apply to our internal, of course, audience as well. And we have been met with high ratings on this point.
But then this agile or global, this is an area where we do believe there's still a room for improvement. This is something that we be able to tell from the scores that we receive from our internal people. We have like 21,000 members globally, and 90%, or there's actually more than 90% response from these 21,000 people. And we're also receiving many numbers of comments, more than 18,000. And of course, there are a lot of things that we still have to work on, but it does tell that there is quite high engagement from our employees, at least by looking at this number. And based on this, as you can see on the far right, we're trying to leverage the voice that we are hearing. In other words, we've been able to identify two areas where we really need to work on. First is about career opportunity. In other words, we have to show more career opportunities, and that was one clear voice that we were hearing from our employees. And just like the tagging improvements required. So maybe here we have this leadership team that's working globally, but then on the working level, it's not exactly global. That was some of the voice that we were also hearing. So we wanted to make sure that we be able to pursue true global collaboration amongst all levels. And we have actually identified some actions, and we are already executing some of the actions. And so one of the things that I wanted to introduce today is about the career opportunity and global works. And we're trying to make sure that we be able to gain two benefits by this one action. But it's really about enhancing mobility amongst our people. So on the left-hand side, here we have our message. In other words, what are the message? What are the benefits? And so the employees and leaders, they're supposed to take this as a benefit. Please don't think that it means that you're being deprived of a good talent at your team, but it's actually something good because it is really going to flourish, invigorate the entire organization. And so it's really about the philosophy behind this internal mobility. And this is something that we are repeatedly telling to our people so that we be able to create this common ground. On the middle, this is something that you'd be able to see too, but this is about making more visible about where are the open posts are. And we want to introduce this to internal as well as to external people. Now, today, there's like several hundred open positions. And so we want to have our employees look at this, and if they find anything that think it's worth challenging, we want to encourage them to really challenge to that task, regardless of where it is being offered. And at the same time, if we wanted to pursue global mobility, this is exactly an area where we still need to work on. Compensation plans, benefit plans. We want to make sure we'd be able to integrate this more next year. But we also, by doing that, we want to enhance this global mobility program. So that's why we wrote here, working on it. Now, each of these activities, be it the US or Europe, some of the companies that's really multinational and working globally, I'm sure these are some of the activities that's obviously naturally taking place already. However, if we look at Japanese companies, as far as I know, I don't believe there be many Japanese companies that be really working seriously on these internal mobility. And Renaissance had been one of those, the more general Japanese companies, but we want to be on par as other multinational, real global companies. And so we want to foster more internal mobility, but then we want to more strategically think about deploying a lot of people in each of the global arena. And so that is why I wanted to tell you what progress we're trying to make in that part. The final part of the foundation is about ESG. I will be happy to answer any of your questions, but the message here is something that I did say at the footnote here. But we have, first of all, upgraded our target. We previously had been saying that our target is to be included in the 3 indexes. But at the moment, it's something that we've already been able to achieve. In other words, if you go to look at the top right, in the dotted line, you can see that we've been able to be included in these three indexes. And so we have been able to complete that. So for example, now to have a AA rating for MSCI could be one of the near-term target. And so that was one of the thoughts in sorting this map. Now, the second row is the in progress area. And so MSCI, of course, we are already included in the ratings, but then it's not yet AA. And we're doing our own work so that we be able to get that rating in the end. But there are other activities behind the scenes. Many of them is already being executed. But for example, in the social, the supplier audit, from last year, we have tried to increase the number of the auditors. And so this is something that is in progress. And in the near future, we're hoping that whatever we have in this in progress column would be upgraded to that good column. So when we have all these elements in this in progress column be upgraded to good, then what we'd be focusing on would be some of the elements that we still have in the insight column. And at the same time, we'll be working on the more emerging topics that you find at the far bottom. We have three there. So the two bottom columns will be some of the areas that we'll be focusing more as we be able to fulfill our works in the current in progress column. And eventually, we want to make sure that all of these elements you find here will be included in the top good column. So now I'd like to just quickly go over some of the numbers. I am going to have Mr. Shinkai be able to tell you details of the numbers, so I'm just going to be very brief. But again, on the top, on the right, you can see that, so here we're trying to make sure that we want to grow the revenue a little over SAM, a gross margin 50 to 55%, operating margin like 25, 30%. And this comes from the midterm model that I introduced at the very end of last year. So it's just a recap slide. So where are we right now? Now, after the first half, that's exactly what's indicated in the middle gray area. But then if you look at the total, the right, you can see that we've been able to put a check mark to all the items versus our long-term target. And of course, there are some people who would say, so what is going to be your updated next target? But for the time being, we're just going to keep our current long-term target because right now we're doing well, but we don't know how the market environment would evolve next year. I'm sure Mr. Shinkai would be able to tell you a little more later on, but we are making investment for the future. That means our gross margin to some extent would be pressured. And so that is why we're going to currently keep our long-term target. We want to make sure we'll be able to further solidify our foundation. And that's exactly the phase that we will be entering from now on. Now, what goes from thereof, we want to be a little more aggressive. So here I have illustrated this 2030 aspiration, which we share with external parties, and that is why I have decided to put the slide here as well. So first, it's about the embedded semiconductor solution supplier. And we want to be the real top three. And in terms of revenue, now, of course, we still have to be mindful about the FX, but we want to make sure that we would be well over that 20 billion threshold. And market cap versus 2022, we want to have our market cap be 6 times. Now, we still have 8 years more, but we don't know what could happen. But I personally do want to make sure that our market cap would be 6 times of today by 2030. So that's the entire aspiration. And how do we do that? In the near term, as I have been talking before I had been really focusing on what near-term achievements we'd be able to make in the automotive and the industrial IoT side, but now we have decided to sort of change our gears. We want to think about cross-BU collaboration so that we'd be able to really create the pathway to this long-term aspiration. And the second thing, this is something that I did talk on the UX part, but I do also want to really focus more on the digitalization works, again, for the long-term aspiration. And that, I believe, would enable us to shift from just being a hardware seller to a solution offerer. But this is something that today is just a concept. And it's not that I have this concrete details that I'd be able to tell you, but it's just a part of the aspiration. So we want to make sure we be able to take time as we be able to make progress that we be able to share with you.
ながらですね、ニュアタームのクロス BU のコラボレーションについてはもうしっかり
As to near-term cross BU collaboration, we have set a roadmap. And just to share this with you, we have already embarked on this. And for each of the BU products, we will aggressively sell to the customers on the other end. The cross-sell up at this point in time has been a focus of acquired companies. However, what we are looking at now is to pursue cross-BU cross-sell. And next year and onwards, that will say near term, we will add value. For example, automotive products will be added on top of that to sell to the automotive customers. And even if it is an automotive product, there will be some changes that will offer a cost-conscious product and sell to the IBU customers. And this is what we hope to be able to achieve the way of value-added cross-sell. And ultimately, in each of the BUs, for the design phase, for the definition of the product side, cross-BU efforts will begin so that the end product will be of added convenience to the end users on both sides. I have consumed considerable amount of time. I'd like to recap. As I mentioned up front, 2013 onwards, from the very beginning, during the years of INCJ, we have pursued trial and error. And finally, we are now back on the map of global semiconductor suppliers, and that is how we see it. And from this point onwards, when we look at the outlook for the years ahead, we will look on solid execution, and that is the phase that we have entered into. And we are ready to look at the outlook for a long-term perspective. And the outlook is bright. And ultimately, up until this point in time, we have introduced various activities, and through the measures taken, ultimately, for the customers, for the engineers who use our products, we hope to be able to bring Renesas to the top of the mind. And ultimately, that will allow us to achieve our purpose. That is to say, to make our lives easier. And that is what we hope to be able to work on tenaciously. I know that I have gone beyond the time that has been provided to me, but with these comments, I would like to conclude my part and turn over to Mr. Shinkai.